Right now, as you go about your day, you are being influenced. Not by force, not by anything you'd ever notice, by a handful of psychological triggers that quietly shape almost every decision you make. What you buy, who you trust, what you say yes to. For over 40 years, one psychologist mapped out exactly how this works. His name was Robert Cialdini, and he discovered that nearly all human persuasion comes down to 6 simple laws. Once you learn them, you'll start seeing them everywhere, and more importantly, they'll stop working on you without your permission. Let's start with the first one. The first law is reciprocity. It's one of the deepest rules in human nature. When someone gives us something, we feel a powerful, almost uncomfortable urge to give something back. We don't like feeling indebted, so we repay, often far more than we received. Here's how powerful this is. Researchers studied what happened when waiters gave diners a small mint along with the bill. Just 1 mint increased their tips noticeably. But here's the fascinating part. When the waiter gave 2 mints, tips jumped dramatically, by as much as 20 or 30%. The cost of the mint was almost nothing, but the feeling of receiving a gift triggered a wave of generosity in return. This is why companies give you free samples, free trials, a free guide in exchange for your email. They aren't just being nice, they're opening a loop of obligation, and they're counting on you to close it by giving back. The gift always comes first, because once you've accepted it, saying no feels strangely rude. The second law is scarcity. We want what we can't have. The harder something is to get, the more valuable it appears in our minds. It isn't logical, but it's deeply human. The fear of missing out is stronger than the desire to gain. Think about how often you see this. Only 3 left in stock. Sale ends at midnight. Limited edition, while supplies last. None of these tell you anything about whether the product is actually good. They simply make it feel like it's slipping away. And the moment something feels like it's disappearing, your brain shifts from calm evaluation to urgent action. Studies have shown that when people are told a product is in limited supply, they rate it as more desirable and are willing to pay more for it, even when nothing about the product itself has changed. The scarcity isn't in the object, it's in your mind, and that's exactly where it's designed to live. The third law is authority. We are wired to obey, or at least defer to, people we perceive as experts or figures of power. This saves us mental effort. We assume the expert knows best, so we follow without questioning. This instinct runs incredibly deep. In one of the most famous psychology experiments ever conducted, people were willing to follow disturbing instructions simply because a man in a lab coat told them to. The lab coat alone, the symbol of authority, was enough to override their own judgment. In everyday life, authority is signaled through small cues: a title, a uniform, a confident tone of voice, a wall of certificates. Advertisements use actors in white coats to sell toothpaste. Brands quote experts and studies. And it works, because we rarely stop to ask, is this person actually an authority, or do they just look like one? The symbols of expertise are often persuasive all on their own, even when the expertise behind them is thin or missing entirely. The fourth law is social proof. When we're unsure what to do, we look at what everyone else is doing, and we copy them. We assume that if many people are doing something, it must be the correct choice. It's a mental shortcut, and most of the time, it's invisible to us. You've felt this. A restaurant with a long line suddenly seems better than the empty one next door, even though you know nothing about the food. A product with thousands of 5-star reviews feels safer than one with none. Comedy shows add canned laughter because, strangely, we find things funnier when we hear other people laughing. This is why you constantly see phrases like, join over 1 million customers, or best seller, or most popular choice. They're not describing quality, they're describing the crowd. And our brains quietly conclude, if everyone else chose this, it's probably the safe bet for me too. The fifth law is liking. This one is simple but enormously powerful. We say yes to people we like, and there are specific, predictable things that make us like someone almost instantly. The first is similarity. We're drawn to people who seem like us, who share our background, our interests, our way of speaking. The second is compliments. Even when we suspect they might not be fully sincere, praise makes us warm to the person giving it. And the third is cooperation, when it feels like we're on the same team, working toward the same goal. This is why a good salesperson finds common ground with you within the first minute, why they mirror your tone, why they compliment your choices. It rarely feels like a tactic, because liking doesn't feel like persuasion. It just feels like a pleasant conversation. But that warm feeling is doing quiet work, lowering your guard, making the yes easier. And the sixth law is commitment and consistency. Once we make a choice, especially out loud or in writing, we feel a strong pull to stay consistent with it. We don't like contradicting ourselves. So once we've taken a small step in a direction, we're far more likely to keep going. Researchers demonstrated this with a clever experiment. They asked homeowners to put a tiny sign in their window supporting safe driving. A small, easy request. Almost everyone agreed. Weeks later, those same people were asked to put a large, ugly billboard on their front lawn, and a remarkable number said yes. Why? Because they had already committed to being someone who supports safe driving. Saying no to the big request would have meant contradicting the person they'd just decided they were. This is called the foot in the door technique. Get someone to agree to something small, and the door swings open for something much bigger. It's why free trials ask for tiny commitments first. Why petitions lead to donation requests. Why the first yes is always the most important one. Because every yes after it feels like simply staying true to yourself. So those are the 6 laws: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, social proof, liking, and commitment. 6 invisible forces working on you every single day. Now here's the part that actually matters. Knowing these laws isn't about becoming a manipulator. It's about becoming someone who can't be easily manipulated. Because the moment you can name one of these triggers as it's happening, it loses most of its power. The next time you feel a sudden urge to buy something because it's almost sold out, pause and recognize scarcity at work. When a free gift makes you feel obligated, notice the pull of reciprocity and ask whether you'd want this thing if it had never been offered. When everyone seems to be choosing one option, ask yourself whether the crowd is actually right or just large. These laws aren't evil. They're simply how human beings have always influenced one another. They can be used to sell you things you don't need, or to encourage you toward things that genuinely help you. The difference isn't in the laws themselves. It's in whether you can see them clearly. And now, you can. So pay attention this week. Watch for these 6 patterns in the ads you scroll past, the conversations you have, the choices you almost make on autopilot. You'll be amazed how often they appear, and how different it feels to notice them instead of being moved by them. If this gave you a new way of seeing the world around you, there's a whole playlist of these waiting for you. I'll see you in the next one.